The billionaire never stopped loving his black woman until their child's crisis put his promise to test. I stood in that hospital corridor, my hand pressed against the wall to keep from collapsing, and I looked at my wife, the woman I'd loved for 8 years, the woman whose eyes were red from 3 days without sleep, and I said the words that nearly destroyed us. "You're going to let our daughter die because of your pride." Her voice came back quiet, deadly quiet, the way a blade sounds when it slides from its sheath. "No, Dashiell. I'm trying to save her soul, while you're only trying to save her body. There's a difference. Our daughter Zuri was 4 floors above us, her 7-year-old body failing while we stood here fighting about money and morality and whether love meant anything when you had to choose between the person you loved and everything you believed in. The experimental drug that could save her life cost $4.2 million per treatment. I had the money. God knows I had the money. I could write the check right now. But my wife, my beautiful, stubborn, principled wife, was saying no. And I couldn't understand if she was the bravest person I'd ever met, or if I'd married someone willing to sacrifice our child on the altar of her politics. You want to know how we got here. You want to know how 2 people who once couldn't keep their hands off each other ended up on opposite sides of an impossible choice. You want to know if love is enough when the whole world is designed to tear you apart. Let me take you back to the beginning. Back to when I thought money could solve anything and Camila thought passion could change everything. Back to before we knew what it cost to love someone from a different world. If you've ever loved someone everyone told you not to love, if you've ever had to choose between your heart and your conscience, if you've ever wondered whether the person lying next to you really sees you, or just the version of you they need you to be, then you need to hear this story. Drop a like right now if you've ever had your love tested. Subscribe, because this story is going to challenge everything you think you know about love and money and what we owe each other. And comment below. Tell me, what would you do if saving the person you love most meant betraying everything you stand for? This is the story of how love survives when surviving isn't enough. 6 years before that hospital corridor. 6 years before the worst fight of our lives. I met Camila Osei at a Brooklyn City Council meeting on a Tuesday night in October, and I wanted to strangle her before I wanted to kiss her. I was there representing Vandenberg Technologies. We'd just proposed a development project in Bedford-Stuyvesant. Mixed use, residential and commercial. 23 stories of glass and steel, and what we called in the proposal urban revitalization. The community called it gentrification. She called it colonization. Camila stood at the public comment microphone in a yellow dress that seemed to gather all the light in that fluorescent-lit room. Her locks were pulled back, her posture was perfect, and when she spoke, every person in that chamber leaned forward. Mr. Vandenberg's proposal is beautiful on paper. I'll give him that. The renderings are gorgeous. All that glass, all those green spaces, all those amenities. But let me ask Mr. Vandenberg a question. She turned and looked directly at me. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they held no warmth. Where exactly do you think the people who currently live in Bedford-Stuyvesant are going to go when your beautiful building raises property values by 40%? Do they get to enjoy your rooftop garden in your farmer's market? Or do they get to enjoy the Bronx, which is where they'll end up when they can't afford rent anymore? I should have let our PR team handle it. That's what they were paid for. But something about her tone, about the way she'd said Mr. Vandenberg like it was an accusation, made me stand up. Miss Osei, I presume. Dr. Osei, actually. I have a PhD in urban planning from Columbia, but Miss is fine if Mr. is too hard for you to remember. The room rippled with murmurs. I felt my face heat up. Dr. Osei, I corrected. Our proposal includes 40% affordable housing units. We've committed to hiring locally for construction. We've partnered with community organizations. 40% affordable at 80% area median income. She interrupted. Do you know what 80% AMI is in Brooklyn, Mr. Vandenberg? It's $68,000 for a family of 4. Do you know what the median income is for the families who actually live in the neighborhood you're developing? $32,000. So, your affordable housing is affordable to transplants, to people moving in, not to the people already here. You're not creating housing. You're creating displacement with better marketing. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. What would you have us do? Not build, not invest. Leave the neighborhood as it is. Her smile was sharp. I'd have you build housing that's actually affordable to the people who live here. I'd have you pay construction workers a living wage, not minimum wage. I'd have you commit to permanent affordability, not the 20-year tax abatement loophole you're planning to exploit. I'd have you see the people you're displacing as human beings with roots and histories and rights, not as obstacles to your profit margin. But that would require you to see us as people first. And I don't think that's how you're trained to see the world. The meeting continued for another 90 minutes. Our proposal was tabled for further review. I sat through public comment after public comment, each one echoing Camilla's concerns, and I felt something unfamiliar, not anger exactly, something closer to shame. After the meeting ended, I found her in the parking lot. She was unlocking a 12-year-old Honda Civic with a dented bumper and a faded Bernie Sanders sticker. Dr. Osei. She turned, her keys in her hand, her expression guarded. If you're here to threaten me or my job, you should know I'm an independent consultant. I don't work for anyone you can pressure. I'm here to ask if you'd have coffee with me. Her laugh was short and sharp. You're joking. I'm not. You clearly know more about this community than anyone on my team. I'd like to learn. I'd like to understand what we got wrong. What you got wrong is thinking you can fix poverty with luxury condos. Coffee isn't going to change that. Maybe not. But it's a start. She studied me for a long moment. The parking lot lights cast shadows across her face. One coffee, public place, and you're paying since you've got all that displacement money. That first coffee was at a diner on Fulton Street. We sat across from each other in a cracked vinyl booth, and we argued for 3 hours. She ordered pancakes and bacon and coffee that she drank black. I ordered eggs I didn't eat because I couldn't stop watching her talk. Her hands moved when she made points, her whole face animated. She talked about structural inequality and housing policy and the history of redlining with the kind of passion most people reserve for religion or love. You really believe we're the villains, I said finally. I believe you're operating in a system that requires villains and victims, and you've chosen your side. What if I don't want to be on that side? Then you'd have to give up everything that side gives you. The money. The power. The ability to walk into rooms and have people listen because of your last name. You ready for that, Dashiell Vandenberg? She said my full name like it was evidence in a trial. Maybe, I said. She smiled then, really smiled, and something in my chest cracked open. We had coffee again the next week. And the week after that. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became long walks through Prospect Park, where we debated everything from reparations to universal basic income to whether love could exist outside of economic context. You think everything is about money, she said one night as we walked past the lake. I think money is the language power speaks. And if you don't speak that language, you don't get to make decisions. That's the most honest thing you've said to me. I'm trying to be honest with you, Camila. She stopped walking. We were under a street lamp, and the light turned her skin to gold. Why? Because I think I'm falling in love with you, and I need you to know who you'd be falling for. If you were falling. Her eyes searched my face. You know this is a terrible idea. I know. You know your family will hate it. I know. You know my community will think I sold out. I know. You know we're from different planets. I know. She kissed me then, or I kissed her. It didn't matter who moved first. What mattered was the way the world narrowed to just her mouth and my hands in her hair, and the certainty that I'd just made the best and most complicated decision of my life. We kept it quiet for 3 months. Secret dates in restaurants far from Manhattan. Weekends at my house in the Berkshires where no one knew us. Phone calls that lasted until 3 in the morning where we talked about everything except what we were doing and where it could possibly go. My mother found out when Page 6 ran a photo of us leaving a theater in Brooklyn. The headline read, "Billionaire Vandenberg's Mystery Woman." The article speculated about my radical change in type. My mother called 16 times before I answered. Dashiell Thorne Vandenberg. You will come to brunch this Sunday and you will explain to me what on earth you're thinking. Brunch at my mother's house was a command performance in her Park Avenue apartment. Cordelia Ashworth Vandenberg sat at the head of her dining table in pearls and cashmere, and she looked at Camila the way an entomologist looks at a particularly confusing insect. "So, you're an activist," she said. "How interesting." "I'm an urban planning consultant," Camilla replied evenly. "I work with communities to resist predatory development." Resist development. My mother's smile could cut glass. "How progressive." "I prefer effective to progressive," Camilla said. "But I'll take the compliment. Dashiell tells me you grew up in the Bronx." "I did. My parents immigrated from Ghana in 1985. My father drove a taxi for 23 years. My mother cleaned houses, including houses in this building, actually." The silence that followed could have swallowed the room. "How lovely," my mother said finally. "Immigration is such an important part of our national fabric, especially when that fabric needs cleaning," Camilla said sweetly. I choked on my water. My mother's expression went arctic. The rest of brunch was excruciating. My mother asking pointed questions about Camilla's family, her education, her career prospects. Camilla answering with a smile that never reached her eyes. Me trying to build bridges across a canyon neither of them wanted to cross. In the elevator afterwards, Camilla was silent. "I'm sorry," I said. She was out of line. Was she? Or was she just saying out loud what everyone in your world is thinking? That I'm not good enough. That I don't belong. That you're slumming until you come to your senses. That's not what I think. Maybe not. But it's what they think. Your mother, your friends, everyone who sees us together and does the math. What math? The math that says Dashiell Vandenberg doesn't marry the girl from the Bronx whose mother cleaned toilets. He might sleep with her. He might have his fun. But he marries Chandler Montgomery or Bianca Whitmore or one of the other girls whose great-great-grandfather came over on the Mayflower. I pulled her close in that elevator, pressed my forehead to hers. "I love you. I don't care what they think. I want to marry you." She pulled back, her eyes wide. "What? I want to marry you. Camilla, I want to build a life with you. I want to have kids with you and fight with you and figure out how to change the world together. I want everything." "You're insane." "Probably. Is that a yes?" She laughed. Actually laughed. "Ask me properly and maybe you'll find out." I proposed 3 weeks later. We were back at that diner on Fulton Street, in the same cracked vinyl booth where we'd had our first coffee. I had a ring from Tiffany's that cost more than her car. She said yes, and then immediately started crying. "I can't believe I'm doing this," she said through tears. "Having regrets already. Terrified regrets. Happy regrets. I don't know. I just know I love you, and this is either the best decision I've ever made or the worst, and I won't know which until it's too late to turn back." We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony. Prospect Park. Her family and chosen family on one side. My family and society friends on the other. The two groups eyeing each other like opposing armies at a peace summit. My mother wore black like she was in mourning. Camilla's mother wore traditional Ghanaian kente cloth and danced with a joy that made everyone else's stiffness look like what it was, fear. Our first year of marriage was hard. Harder than I'd expected. We fought about money constantly. About how much to spend on rent, on furniture, on dinners out. She wanted to live in Brooklyn. I wanted Manhattan. She wanted to keep working her consulting job that paid $60,000 a year. I wanted her to join the foundation I was starting, where she could make real change with real resources. She said I was trying to buy her. I said I was trying to partner with her. We were both right and both wrong. We compromised on a brownstone in Fort Greene. 3 stories. Original details. A neighborhood that was gentrifying but still had some of its original character. I paid the down payment. She insisted on contributing to the mortgage proportional to her income, which meant she paid 3% and I paid 97%, and we both pretended it was equal. But at night, when we lay in bed in that brownstone, in the bedroom we'd painted together, with the windows open to the sounds of the city, none of the fights mattered. She'd curl into my side, her locks spread across my chest, and we'd talk about the future. About the kids we'd have. About the foundation we'd build together once she was ready. About how we'd prove everyone wrong. 2 years into our marriage, she got pregnant. We were careful about announcing it. Waited until the 2nd trimester. Told our families separately so we could manage their reactions. My mother's response was measured. "How wonderful. I do hope the child doesn't have too many complications navigating their identity." Camila's mother danced again, cried, started knitting blankets immediately. The pregnancy was easy until it wasn't. Camila developed preeclampsia at 34 weeks. They had to induce labor early. I sat in that delivery room holding her hand while she screamed through contractions, and I understood for the first time that there were things my money couldn't fix. I couldn't take her pain. I couldn't make the delivery easier. I could only be there. Zuri Ashanti Vandenberg came into the world at 5 pounds 3 ounces, with a full head of dark curly hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. We named her Zuri because it means beautiful in Swahili, Ashanti for Camila's grandmother. Vandenberg because that was the compromise. The baby got my last name and Camila got to choose everything else. From the moment I held her, I was undone. This tiny person who was half me and half the woman I loved, this miracle who had my nose and Camila's mouth and a personality that announced itself immediately through her lusty crying. "You're in trouble," Camila said from the hospital bed, watching me hold Zuri. "She's going to have you wrapped around her finger." "Already does," I admitted. Those first years of Zuri's life were the happiest of my marriage. We were tired constantly. Our sex life suffered. We argued about parenting styles and sleep training and whether to hire a nanny, but we were happy. Deeply, complicatedly happy. Zuri grew into a whirlwind of a child, bright and curious and relentlessly verbal. By 3, she was asking questions that didn't have easy answers. "Daddy, why is your skin different from mine?" "Because people have different skin colors, sweetheart. Like flowers come in different colors." "But why?" "Because that's how genetics work. You got some of my features and some of mommy's features. Timmy at school said I'm not really black because my daddy is white." Camila and I had looked at each other across the dinner table, and I saw my own pain reflected in her eyes. "You're both, baby," Camila said gently. "You're black and you're white and you're everything in between. You're perfect exactly as you are. But what am I really? You're really our daughter. You're really loved. You're really Zuri. And anyone who tries to put you in a box that's too small doesn't understand how big you actually are." Zuri seemed satisfied with that answer. For about a week. Then she was back with new questions. "Why does Grandma Cordelia look at Mommy funny?" "What do you mean, funny?" "Like she's trying to solve a math problem." "But she doesn't like math." I had no answer for that one. By the time Zuri was 5, we'd established a rhythm. Camila had finally agreed to join the Vandenberg Foundation, running the education and housing equity initiatives. She brought her passion and her community connections. I brought the resources and the business infrastructure. Together, we were actually making a difference. Funding affordable housing developments that were truly affordable. Supporting community land trusts. Investing in schools in underserved neighborhoods. We thought we'd figured it out. How to bridge our worlds. How to use my privilege and her principles to create something meaningful. We thought love and money and good intentions were enough. We were wrong. The first sign that something was wrong with Zuri came on a Saturday morning. She was 7 years old. We were at her dance recital. She'd been taking ballet and African dance, trying to honor both sides of her heritage. She was on stage, mid-performance, when she just stopped moving. Not like she forgot the choreography. Like someone had pressed pause on her, then she collapsed. I was on that stage before I consciously decided to move, gathering her up, her small body limp in my arms. Camila was right behind me, her hand on Zuri's face, calling her name. "Baby, baby, wake up! Zuri, can you hear me?" Zuri's eyes fluttered open. She looked confused. "What happened?" "You fainted, sweetheart. We're gonna take you to the doctor, okay? But I want to finish my dance." "Later, baby. Later." The emergency room was crowded and loud and smelled like disinfectant and fear. They took Zuri back immediately when I gave our name. That's what money does. It moves you to the front of the line. Camila noticed. She always noticed. They took blood, did an EKG, a CT scan, asked questions about her medical history, her symptoms, whether she'd been sick recently. We answered everything we could and tried not to let Zuri see how scared we were. The ER doctor was young, competent, reassuring. "Her vitals are stable now. Everything looks normal on the initial tests. It could have been dehydration or low blood sugar. Kids sometimes faint, but I'd recommend following up with your pediatrician for some additional blood work just to rule out anything else. We followed up. Dr. Amara Nwosu had been Zuri's pediatrician since birth, a Nigerian woman with 3 kids of her own and the kind of calm competence that made you feel like everything would be okay even when it wouldn't. She ran the additional blood work, called us 3 days later and asked us to come in without Zuri. That's when I knew. When a doctor asks you to come in without your child, it's never good news. Dr. Nwosu sat across from us in her office, and her expression was careful. Too careful. Zuri's blood work shows some abnormalities. Her white blood cell count is significantly elevated, and there are immature cells present that shouldn't be there. I'm referring you to a pediatric hematologist-oncologist at Mount Sinai, Dr. Helena Okonkwo. She's the best. Oncologist, Camila repeated. That's cancer. We don't know that yet, but we need to investigate further. The appointment is tomorrow at 2. Tomorrow? I said. That fast. When we see these kinds of numbers, we don't wait. I reached for Camila's hand. She was shaking. What do we tell Zuri? She asked. Tell her the doctors want to run some more tests to figure out why she fainted. Don't give her more information than she can handle. 7-year-olds don't need to carry adult fears. We left that office and sat in the car in the parking lot, and neither of us could speak. Finally, Camila turned to me. This isn't happening. I know. This can't be happening. I know. She's 7 years old, Dashel. She's 7 years old, and she still sleeps with that stuffed elephant, and she wants to be a marine biologist, and she just learned to ride a bike without training wheels, and this can't be happening. I pulled her to me, and we held each other in that parking lot while the world continued around us like nothing had changed, like our entire universe hadn't just tilted on its axis. Dr. Helena Okonkwo was in her 50s, with short silver hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering to offer false hope. She examined Zuri thoroughly, asked her questions, made her laugh even. Then she sent Zuri to the playroom with a nurse and turned to us. I need to do a bone marrow biopsy. It's the only way to definitively diagnose what we're looking at. When? I asked. This afternoon. I've already arranged for the procedure room. This afternoon, Camila said. That's in 3 hours. I know this is moving fast. But based on her blood work and her symptoms, we need answers quickly. What do you think it is? I asked. I think it's leukemia, most likely acute myeloid leukemia. But I need the biopsy to confirm. The word hung in the air between us. Leukemia. What's the prognosis? Camila asked. Her voice was steady, but I felt her hand crushing mine. If it's AML, it's serious, but it's treatable. Survival rates for pediatric AML have improved significantly. We're looking at chemotherapy, possibly radiation, possibly a bone marrow transplant, depending on how she responds to treatment. Survival rates, I said. What are the numbers? With aggressive treatment, we see 5-year survival rates around 60 to 70% for pediatric AML. 60 to 70%, which meant 30 to 40% of children didn't make it. I felt the room tilt. The biopsy was brutal to watch. They sedated Zuri, but she was conscious, aware. The needle they used to extract bone marrow from her hip was large and cruel-looking. She cried. Called for us. We held her hands and told her she was brave and strong, and I had never felt more helpless in my entire life. The results came back 2 days later. Dr. Okonkwo called us in again. It's acute myeloid leukemia, subtype M2. We need to start chemotherapy immediately. I'm recommending an aggressive protocol. Induction chemotherapy to get her into remission, then consolidation therapy to kill any remaining cancer cells. The treatment will be hard. She'll lose her hair. She'll be sick. She'll be immunocompromised. But this is our best shot. When do we start? I asked. Tomorrow. I'm admitting her tonight. Everything after that was a blur. Admitting Zuri to the pediatric oncology floor, the room that would become our second home. The central line they put in her chest for chemotherapy. The first infusion, the toxic chemicals pumping into my daughter's small body to kill the cells that were trying to kill her. Camila didn't leave the hospital for the first week. I brought her clothes, food, everything she needed. I fielded calls from work, from my mother, from everyone who wanted to help but couldn't. I sat with them when I could, went to the office when I had to, and tried not to fall apart. The chemotherapy was as brutal as Dr. Okonkwo had warned. Zuri's beautiful curly hair fell out in handfuls. She lost weight, lost her appetite. The steroids made her face puffy and changed her personality. She'd cry over nothing, and then feel bad for crying. She'd throw up so violently I thought she'd break. And through it all, she kept asking when she could go home, when she could go back to school, when she could be normal again. After 6 weeks of induction chemotherapy, we got the news we'd been desperately hoping for. Zuri was in remission. The cancer was undetectable in her blood and bone marrow. We celebrated in that hospital room with cupcakes from her favorite bakery and balloons and tears of relief. Dr. Okonkwo came by to congratulate us, but her expression was cautious. This is wonderful news. But we're not done. We need to continue with consolidation chemotherapy to make sure we've killed all the cancer cells. 4 more rounds. Then we'll monitor her closely. Zuri tolerated the consolidation therapy better than the induction. She was able to come home between treatments, go back to school with a wig and a hat and a note from her doctor. Her friends rallied around her, made her cards, visited when her immune system allowed. Life started to feel almost normal again. We made it through 3 rounds of consolidation chemotherapy. Zuri's scans kept coming back clean. Dr. Okonkwo was cautiously optimistic. Then everything fell apart. Zuri started complaining of bone pain again. Fatigue. The same symptoms that had started this nightmare. We rushed her in for blood work. Dr. Okonkwo's face when she got the results told me everything before she said a word. The leukemia is back. And it's aggressive. The cancer has developed resistance to the chemotherapy protocol we were using. What does that mean? Camilla asked. It means we need a different approach. The standard protocols aren't working. I need to be honest with you. Relapsed AML in children is very serious. 5-year survival rates drop to around 30% with standard salvage therapy. 30%, I repeated. But, Dr. Okonkwo continued, there's an experimental treatment, a new targeted therapy that's showing remarkable results in clinical trials. 98% response rate in the patients who've received it. 98%, Camilla said. Why isn't that the standard? Because it's still experimental. The FDA hasn't approved it yet. And because it's extraordinarily expensive. How expensive? I asked. $4.2 million per treatment cycle. Zuri would need 6 cycles. The number hit like a physical blow. $25.2 million. I don't care, I said immediately. Whatever it costs, we'll pay it. Dashel, Camilla said. I don't care, I repeated. I will liquidate everything if I have to. She gets the treatment. Dr. Okonkwo's expression was complicated. There's something else you should know. The pharmaceutical company that makes this drug, Helix Biopharmaceuticals, they're only providing it to patients who can pay out of pocket while they wait for FDA approval. They have the capacity to treat more patients, but they're choosing not to. They're using scarcity to drive up the price and maximize profit before generics can enter the market. I don't care about the pharmaceutical company's business model, I said. I care about saving my daughter. Camilla stood up abruptly and walked to the window. Mr. Vandenberg, Dr. Okonkwo said gently. I understand. And I'll help you get Zuri enrolled in the treatment program if that's what you decide. But your wife should be part of this decision. Of course she is. Camilla, we're doing this, right? She didn't turn around. Can you give us a moment? She asked Dr. Okonkwo. Of course. Take all the time you need. But I do need to know soon. Zuri's cancer is progressing quickly. After Dr. Okonkwo left, I went to Camilla at the window. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about the other families, she said quietly. The ones who can't pay $4 million per treatment. The ones whose children have the same cancer, need the same drug, and are going to die because they don't have the money. That's terrible. It is. But we can't save everyone. We can only save Zuri. She turned to face me, and her eyes were full of tears. Can we, though? Can we save her by participating in a system that lets other children die? Can we live with ourselves knowing we bought her life with money that 99% of families don't have? What does that teach her? What does that make us? It makes us her parents, I said, my voice rising. It makes us people who will do whatever it takes to save our child. This isn't about politics, Camila. This is about Zuri's life. Everything is about politics, Dashiell. You know that. You just have the privilege of ignoring it until it personally affects you. Don't, I warned. Don't make this about privilege. Don't make this about class or race or any of your talking points. This is about our daughter. Our daughter who's black. Our daughter who would be on the other side of this equation if she'd been born to my parents instead of us. Our daughter who's only getting access to this treatment because her last name is Vandenberg. Yes, I shouted. Yes. She's getting access because of who we are and what we have. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not going to let her die to make a political point. The words hung between us. Ugly and true and terrible. Is that what you think I'm doing? Camila said, her voice dangerously quiet. You think I want her to die to make a point? I think you're so committed to your principles that you can't see there's a child's life at stake. She slapped me. I'd never seen her hand move. 1 second we were facing each other, the next my cheek was stinging and she was shaking. Don't you dare, she said. Don't you dare suggest I love my principles more than I love my daughter. You have no idea what this is costing me. No idea what it feels like to watch your child suffer and know that her suffering is optional for people with money and mandatory for people without. Then let's be the people with money. Let's save her. Let's figure out the politics later. There is no later, she said. Every day we wait to fix this system. Children die, children who could be saved. And if we just write the check and walk away, we're complicit in their deaths. So, what do you want to do? Let Zuri die to save hypothetical other children. I want us to find a third option. There is no third option, Camila. There's save her or don't save her. That's the choice. No, she said. The choice is who we are. The choice is what kind of people we want to be and what kind of world we want to leave for Zuri if she survives this. And I'm telling you, I can't be the person who steps on other people's children to save my own. I can't. We stared at each other across an impossible distance, and I realized we were standing at a crossroads. That this moment would define everything that came after. What if I authorized the treatment without your consent? I said quietly. Her face went pale. Then you'd be telling me that my voice doesn't matter in this marriage. That when it comes down to it, your money gives you the final say. And I don't know if we'd survive that. We won't survive losing Zuri. We won't survive betraying everything we believe in either. I believe in saving my daughter. So do I, she said. I just also believe in saving everyone else's daughters too. And I need you to understand that those two things don't have to be in conflict. But you have to be willing to see a bigger picture than just us. Enlighten me then. What's the bigger picture? She took a deep breath. We pay for Zuri's treatment. All of it. And simultaneously, we commit $500 million to breaking Helix Biopharmaceuticals' patent on this drug. We fund alternative research. We lobby the FDA for emergency approval of generics. We create a foundation that guarantees every child with AML gets access to this treatment regardless of their ability to pay. We use your money and your connections not just to save Zuri, but to save every child like her. $500 million, I repeated. You have it. Your net worth is over $4 billion. This is 12% of your wealth. And it saves lives. Potentially hundreds of lives. You're asking me to go to war with a pharmaceutical company while our daughter is dying. I'm asking you to be the man I thought I married. The man who told me he wanted to change the world. The man who said money was only worth something if you used it for good. I sat down heavily in the chair. My head was spinning. What if it doesn't work? What if we commit all that money and time and Zuri dies anyway while we're fighting this fight? What if she lives and we teach her that her life is worth more than other children's lives? What kind of person does she become then? A living person. A guilty person. A person who knows her survival came at the cost of other children's deaths. Is that the gift you want to give her? Survival without conscience. I want to give her life. Everything else we can figure out after. There is no after if we're not willing to fight for it now. We were at an impasse. Two people who loved each other and loved our daughter but couldn't agree on how to save her. Two people from different worlds with different ways of seeing and being in the world, and our daughter's life hanging in the balance. I need to think, I said finally. We don't have time for you to think. Dr. Okonkwo said Zuri's cancer is progressing. Every day we delay is a day the cancer gets stronger. Then what do you want me to say, Camila? What words are you waiting to hear? I want you to say you understand. I want you to say you see why this matters. I want you to say you're willing to fight not just for Zuri but for every child who deserves the same chance she's getting. And if I can't say that, if all I can think about is saving our daughter and everyone else's background noise, then I don't know if I can do this with you. The silence that followed was cavernous. We stood on opposite sides of that hospital room, and the distance between us felt like continents. Finally, I spoke. You're saying you'd leave me over this. I'm saying I don't know who you are right now, and I don't know if I can be married to someone who sees my deepest values as background noise. Your deepest values are about to kill our daughter. No, she said, her voice breaking. The system is about to kill our daughter. The same system that's been killing black and brown children for generations, while rich white kids get access to experimental treatments. I'm just refusing to pretend that system is okay because this time it's working in our favor. I ran my hands through my hair, felt the exhaustion in every bone of my body. I can't believe we're having this fight while Zuri is 4 floors above us getting sicker by the hour. Neither can I, Camila said. But here we are. So what's it going to be, Dashel? Are you going to be the man who hoards resources to protect his own? Or are you going to be the man who uses everything he has to break the system that's killing children? I don't know, I admitted. I genuinely don't know. All I know is I'm terrified of losing her, and you're asking me to take a risk with her life that I don't know if I can take. I'm not asking you to risk her life. I'm asking you to save her life in a way that also saves other lives. There's a difference, is there? Because from where I'm standing, your plan involves starting a legal war with a pharmaceutical company that has unlimited resources and no conscience. That takes time Zuri might not have. So we move fast. You have lawyers. You have connections. You know how to make things happen when you want them to happen. You've built a $4 billion company. You're telling me you can't figure out how to pressure one pharmaceutical company. It's not that simple. It never is. But that doesn't make it impossible. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago in a city council meeting. The woman who'd never backed down from a fight, who'd never compromised her principles for comfort or convenience. The woman who was asking me to be someone I wasn't sure I knew how to be. If we do this your way and she dies, I said quietly, I will never forgive you. You need to know that. If we do this your way and she lives, Camila replied, I will never forgive myself. You need to know that too. We stood there in that standoff for what felt like hours. Finally, my phone rang. It was Dr. Okonkwo. Mr. Vandenberg. I need a decision. Zuri's latest blood work shows the cancer is progressing rapidly. We need to start treatment within the next 48 hours, or we're looking at organ failure. 48 hours, I repeated, looking at Camila. I'm sorry to pressure you, but this is the reality. Please discuss with your wife and let me know. After I hung up, I turned to Camila. 48 hours. That's all we have. Then let's use them, she said. Make the calls. Get your lawyers involved. Contact the FDA. Reach out to your connections at the pharmaceutical companies. See what's possible. And I'll authorize Zuri's treatment. We'll start the first cycle. But simultaneously, we commit to the bigger fight. Deal. You'll authorize the treatment. Yes. I'm not going to let her die, Dashel. I've never been willing to let her die. I've just been trying to make you see that saving her doesn't mean abandoning everyone else. I felt something release in my chest. Some terrible knot of fear that had been choking me. Okay, we'll do both. We'll save Zuri, and we'll fight the system. I don't know how yet, but we'll figure it out. She crossed the room then and put her arms around me, and I held her like she was the only thing keeping me standing, which maybe she was. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry this is so hard. I'm sorry we can't just write a check and make it all go away. but I need you to understand why we can't. I'm trying, I said into her hair. I'm really trying. I know. That's all I'm asking. We went upstairs to Zuri's room together. She was sleeping, her small chest rising and falling with effort. The cancer was eating her from the inside, and I could see it in the dark circles under her eyes, the pallor of her skin, the way her body seemed to be folding in on itself. Camila sat beside her and stroked her hair. What was left of it anyway? We're going to fix this, baby, she said softly. Mommy and Daddy are going to fix this. Zuri's eyes fluttered open. Promise. Promise, Camila said. Pinky promise. Camila held out her pinky, and Zuri hooked hers around it with the solemnity of a sacred oath. After Zuri drifted back to sleep, I made the first call. To Marcus Chen, the head of my legal team. Marcus, I need you to clear your schedule. Everything. I'm sending you information about a pharmaceutical company called Helix Biopharmaceuticals. I need you to find every legal vulnerability they have. Patents, FDA filings, clinical trial data, executive compensation, everything, and I need it in 24 hours. Dashell. What's going on? They're holding a life-saving drug hostage for profit, and we're going to break them. The old me, the me from before Camila, would have just paid the money and moved on. But she was right. She was right that we had a responsibility that went beyond our own family. She was right that money was only meaningful if you used it to change systems, not just navigate them. She was right that the man I wanted to be was someone who fought for everyone, not just his own. I spent the next 24 hours on the phone, calling in every favor I'd ever accumulated, reaching out to connections at other pharmaceutical companies who hated Helix's business practices, contacting journalists who covered healthcare policy, talking to patient advocacy groups who'd been fighting for drug price reform. Camila worked her own network. Grassroots organizations, community health advocates, the families of other children who died because they couldn't afford treatment. She built a coalition in 48 hours that would have taken most organizations months to assemble. By the time we met with Dr. Okonkwo to authorize Zuri's treatment, we had the skeleton of a plan. We're authorizing the treatment, I told her. All 6 cycles. Whatever it costs. I'm glad, Dr. Okonkwo said. I'll get the paperwork started. And we're going to war with Helix Biopharmaceuticals, Camila added. We're going to make sure every child gets access to this drug. Dr. Okonkwo's eyebrows rose. That's ambitious. That's necessary, Camila corrected. The first cycle of the experimental treatment started that afternoon. They wheeled Zuri down to the infusion center, and we sat with her while the drug dripped into her central line. It was clear and innocuous looking. Nothing about it suggested it cost $4.2 million. Nothing about it looked like hope. But that's what it was. Zuri tolerated the first infusion well. Better than the chemotherapy. She was tired afterward, but not violently ill. We took that as a good sign. While Zuri received treatment, I received updates from Marcus. His team had found something. Helix Biopharmaceuticals had manipulated their clinical trial data to extend their patent protection. Small manipulations, technically legal, but ethically questionable, and potentially grounds for an FDA investigation. Can we use this? I asked. We can try. I'm drafting a letter to the FDA commissioner. But you should know, this is a long shot. Even if the FDA investigates, even if they find wrongdoing, the wheels of government move slowly. We're talking months, maybe years. We don't have years. We have weeks. Then you need to apply pressure from multiple angles simultaneously. Legal action, public pressure, shareholder activism. Make it more expensive for them to maintain the status quo than to change it. That became our strategy. A multi-front war designed to make Helix Biopharmaceuticals crack before Zuri ran out of time. Camila organized protests outside Helix's headquarters. Families holding photos of children who died from AML. Signs reading, "My child's life is not your profit margin and healthcare is a human right." The media coverage was immediate and intense. I organized a shareholder revolt. Helix was a publicly traded company. I started buying shares. Lots of shares. And I convinced other major investors to do the same. We were preparing to demand an emergency board meeting to address their pricing practices. Marcus filed a lawsuit challenging Helix's patent on grounds of fraud and data manipulation. It wouldn't succeed in court, probably, but it would tie them up in litigation and discovery and bad publicity. And I called in my biggest favor. I reached out to the head of the FDA, someone I'd known from my days at Yale. We'd been in the same secret society. He owed me. I explained the situation and asked for an expedited review of Helix's clinical trial data and consideration of emergency approval for generic alternatives. It's highly unusual, he said. Children are dying, I replied. How unusual does it need to be before it becomes urgent? He promised to look into it. All of this happened while Zuri received her second treatment cycle. She was responding. Her blood work was improving. The cancer markers were dropping. But she was also suffering. The treatment made her nauseous and exhausted. She missed school, missed her friends, missed being a normal 7-year-old. One night, after her second infusion, she asked me a question. Daddy, why are you and Mommy on the news? We're trying to help other kids who are sick like you, but I thought you were supposed to be helping me. We are helping you, sweetheart. But we're also trying to make sure other kids can get the same medicine you're getting. Are there a lot of other kids? Yes, baby, a lot. And they can't get the medicine. Not right now. Not unless their families have a lot of money. She thought about that for a long moment. That's not fair. No, it's not. Can you fix it? We're trying. You should fix it, she said, with the certainty of a child who still believed adults could fix anything. Because everybody's kid is somebody's favorite person. Out of the mouths of babes. I repeated her words to Camila that night. She's smarter than both of us, Camila said. She gets that from you. The war we were waging started to show results by the 4th week. The media attention was relentless. Major news outlets picked up the story. Helix's stock price started to drop. Shareholders were getting nervous. The CEO was called to testify before a congressional committee about pharmaceutical pricing practices. And then we got the break we needed. A whistleblower from inside Helix reached out to Marcus, a researcher who'd been part of the clinical trials. She had evidence that the company had known about potential generic alternatives, but had deliberately suppressed the research to protect their monopoly. She was willing to testify, willing to go public. This changes everything, Marcus said. With her testimony, we can force the FDA to act. We can break their patent. We can open the door for generics. How long? If we move fast. If we get emergency hearings, maybe 6 weeks. Zuri needed 6 treatment cycles, 1 every 2 weeks. We were on cycle 3, which meant we had 6 weeks before her treatment would be complete. It might work. We might actually pull this off. I authorized Marcus to move forward with everything. File the motions, set up the whistleblower testimony. Apply maximum pressure. Camila escalated the public campaign. She went on national television, told our story, showed pictures of Zuri before cancer and after, talked about the other families who'd contacted us, who'd lost children because they couldn't afford treatment. She was compelling and fierce and absolutely uncompromising. The pharmaceutical industry is built on the premise that some lives matter more than others, she said in an interview that went viral. That if you have money, you deserve to live, and if you don't, you deserve to die. And we're here to say that premise is morally bankrupt. My daughter is getting treatment because her father is a billionaire, but she shouldn't have to be a billionaire's daughter to deserve to live. The public response was overwhelming. Donations poured into the foundation we'd set up. Other wealthy families joined the fight. Celebrities amplified the message. Politicians started introducing legislation around pharmaceutical pricing. Helix Biopharmaceuticals tried to weather the storm. Their PR team went into overdrive. They released statements about the cost of research and development, about the need to incentivize innovation, about their commitment to patient access. But we had the whistleblower. We had the evidence. We had momentum. And then Helix blinked. Their CEO called me directly. His name was Richard Ashford. Old money. Old guard. The kind of man who was used to winning. Mr. Vandenberg. I think we got off on the wrong foot. You think denying children access to life-saving medicine because their parents aren't rich enough is the wrong foot. Interesting perspective. I understand you're upset. Your daughter is sick. You're scared, but you're damaging my company based on incomplete information. I have a whistleblower with complete information. Would you like to hear what she has to say? There was a pause. What do you want? I want you to license the drug to generic manufacturers immediately. I want the price to drop to cost, plus a reasonable profit margin. I want a commitment that every child with AML gets access regardless of ability to pay. And I want it in writing within 48 hours. That's not possible. The shareholders would never approve it. We'd lose billions. You're going to lose billions anyway when the FDA revokes your patent and your stock becomes worthless. This way, you get to control the narrative. You get to be the company that did the right thing under pressure instead of the company that was broken by public outrage. Another pause. Longer this time. I need to talk to my board. You have 48 hours. He called back in 24. We have a deal. We'll license to generics. We'll establish a patient assistance fund for families who can't afford even the reduced price. We'll commit to transparent pricing on all oncology drugs in our pipeline. In exchange, you drop the lawsuit, stop the protests, and we announce this as a joint initiative between Helix and the Vandenberg Foundation. I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to drag him through the mud and make him suffer the way families had suffered because of his greed. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about access. Deal. But I want the agreement finalized before Zuri's next treatment. I want to be able to tell her that she's not the only child getting this medicine anymore. You'll have it. The announcement was made on a Thursday afternoon. Helix Biopharmaceuticals and the Vandenberg Foundation jointly announcing a new partnership to ensure universal access to experimental AML treatments. The price of the drug dropping from $4.2 million to $48,000 per cycle. Still expensive, but within reach for insurance coverage and the patient assistance fund. The news coverage was massive. We were hailed as heroes. Helix was praised for their corporate responsibility. Richard Ashford gave interviews about how listening to patients had reminded him why he got into medicine in the first place. It was all PR spin. I knew that. He knew that. But it didn't matter. What mattered was the result. Within 2 weeks, 17 children who'd been denied treatment because of cost began receiving the drug. Within a month, the FDA fast-tracked approval for generic versions. Within 3 months, the price dropped further to $12,000 per cycle. Zuri completed her 6th and final treatment cycle on a Tuesday in March. 7 months after that first fainting spell at her dance recital. 7 months that felt like 7 years. Dr. Okonkwo did a full workup. Blood tests, bone marrow biopsy, PET scan. We waited for results with the kind of terror that had become familiar. When she called us into her office, Camilla gripped my hand so tightly I lost feeling in my fingers. Zuri is in complete remission, Dr. Okonkwo said. No detectable cancer in her blood or bone marrow. All her scans are clear. Camilla burst into tears. I couldn't speak, couldn't process, could only hold on to my wife and let the relief wash over us. She'll need monitoring, Dr. Okonkwo continued. Regular checkups. Blood work every few months for the first year, then less frequently. There's always a risk of relapse with AML. But right now, today, your daughter is cancer-free. We took Zuri home that afternoon. Really home. Not for a break between treatments. Home to stay. She ran into her bedroom and threw herself on her bed with a whoop of joy. I never have to go back to the hospital. You have to go back for checkups, Camilla corrected. But no more treatments, no more infusions. Can I go back to dance class? As soon as Dr. Okonkwo clears you for physical activity, can I grow my hair long again? As long as you want. Can we get a puppy? Camilla and I looked at each other. We'll discuss the puppy, I said. That night, after Zuri fell asleep in her own bed for the first time in months, Camilla and I sat on our back deck. It was early spring. The air still had a chill, but there was a promise of warmth underneath. We did it, she said quietly. You did it. You were right. About all of it. We did it together. You could have just written the check and moved on. But you didn't. You chose the harder path. You didn't give me much choice. She smiled. I know. I'm sorry. But also, I'm not sorry. I know. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Camilla spoke again. Your mother called me today. I braced myself. And She apologized. Actually apologized. Said she'd been wrong about me. About us. Said watching how we fought for Zuri and for other children made her realize that I was the best thing that ever happened to you. I'm sorry, what? My mother said that. I know. I almost fainted. Apparently nearly losing her granddaughter gave her some perspective. Better late than never. She wants to have dinner. The three of us. Well, 4, including Zuri. She wants to start over. Do you want that? Kamila considered. I think so. I think people can change. I think crisis reveals who we are, but it can also transform who we are. Look at us. Look at what we just went through. We're not the same people we were 7 months ago. No, I agreed. We're not. Are we better? I think so. I think we understand each other better. I think we understand what matters. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I love you. Even when I want to strangle you for your privileged blind spots. I love you. I love you. Even when you're absolutely intransigent about your principles. I love you. We're quite a pair. The best pair. 3 months later, we held a celebration at the Vandenberg Foundation. Not just for Zuri's recovery, for the 29 children who'd received treatment through the Patient Assistance Fund we'd established, for the policy changes we'd helped push through, for the lives saved because we'd refused to accept that money determined who deserved to live. All 29 families were there, children in various stages of treatment and recovery, parents who looked at us with gratitude and relief and kinship. We'd all been in the trenches together, fighting the same battle. Zuri was the star of the show, her hair growing back in soft curls, her energy returned. She moved through the crowd like a tiny ambassador, hugging other kids, comparing scars from central lines, talking about the grossness of chemotherapy with the casual expertise of a veteran. At one point, a mother approached me. Her daughter was 6, still bald from treatment, but smiling. Thank you, the mother said. I don't have the words. We'd maxed out our credit cards, started a GoFundMe, sold everything we had, and it still wasn't enough. We were planning her funeral when we got the call that she'd been approved for the assistance program. I'm so glad she's doing well, I said, my throat tight. She is. Because of you and your wife. Because you didn't just save your own daughter. You saved all of them. After she walked away, Kamila slipped her hand into mine. That's why it mattered. I know. Do you really know, though? Do you understand now why I couldn't just let us be the lucky ones? I do. I didn't then, but I do now. She kissed me. Right there in the middle of the celebration, with people watching and cameras flashing, kissed me like we were the only 2 people in the world. When we finally pulled apart, Zuri was standing there with her hands on her hips. You guys are so embarrassing. We laughed. And in that moment, surrounded by families we'd helped save, with our daughter healthy and whole and rolling her eyes at us, I understood what Kamila had been trying to tell me all along. Love isn't just about protecting your own. It's about expanding the circle of who you consider your own until it includes everyone. It's about using whatever power and privilege and resources you have to break the systems that decide some lives matter more than others. It's about keeping your promises. Not just the easy ones, but the hard ones. The ones that cost you something. The ones that require you to be better than you thought you could be. 6 months after that celebration, I was invited to speak at a healthcare policy conference, the same kind of conference where I'd met Kamila 8 years earlier. Full circle. I stood at that podium and told our story. Not just the triumphant parts, the ugly parts too. The fight Kamila and I had. My initial resistance. My willingness to just write a check and ignore the system. My journey from seeing money as a solution to seeing it as a responsibility. The billionaire never stopped loving his black woman, I said to the audience. That was never the question. The question was whether his love was big enough to see what she saw. Whether he could expand his understanding of who deserved saving. Whether he could use his privilege to dismantle the systems that created privilege in the first place. I paused and looked out at the crowd. My daughter is alive today because I'm a billionaire. And that should make all of us furious. Because there shouldn't be a price tag on a child's life. There shouldn't be a calculation about who deserves access to medicine and who doesn't. And if we accept that reality, if we shrug and say that's just how the world works, then we're complicit in every death that didn't have to happen. After the speech, a young woman approached me. She was a medical student, maybe 25, with tired eyes and determined shoulders. "My little brother died of AML 3 years ago," she said. "We couldn't afford the experimental treatments. I became a doctor because of him, because I never want another family to go through what mine went through." "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Change things. Keep changing things. That's the only apology that matters." I thought about her words on the drive home, about how grief transforms into purpose, about how the worst moments of our lives can become the catalyst for the best work we'll ever do. When I got home, Zuri was doing homework at the kitchen table. She was 8 now, healthy, thriving, already talking about how she was going to be a doctor when she grew up so she could help kids like her. "Hey, Dad," she said without looking up from her math worksheet. "Did you know that 70% of families in America can't afford a $400 emergency? I learned that in social studies today." "I did know that, sweetheart." "That's messed up." "It is. You should fix that too." I smiled. "I'm working on it." She looked up then, her eyes so much like her mother's. "Good, because everybody matters, not just the people with money." "Everybody matters," I agreed. Camilla came into the kitchen carrying groceries. She'd been at a community meeting in Bedford-Stuyvesant, still fighting the good fight, still refusing to be bought or silenced or made comfortable. "How was the speech?" she asked. "Good, hard, important. The best things usually are." She started unpacking groceries, and I watched her move around our kitchen. This woman who'd challenged me and changed me and refused to let me be less than I could be. This woman who'd almost broken us apart because she loved justice as much as she loved our daughter. This woman who'd been right about everything that mattered. "Thank you," I said. She paused. "For what?" "For not letting me take the easy way out, for making me see beyond our family, for teaching me that love means fighting for everyone, not just your own." "You're welcome." "But you did the work. You made the choice. Because you showed me there was a choice to make." That night, the 3 of us had dinner together. Nothing fancy. Pasta and salad and garlic bread. Zuri told us about her day, about the science project she was planning, about the boy in her class who was annoying but also maybe kind of cute. Normal things. Beautiful, mundane things. After dinner, after Zuri went upstairs to read, Camilla and I sat on the couch. She curled into my side the way she'd done 1,000 times before. "Do you ever think about how close we came," she asked quietly, "to losing her, to losing us? Every day." "Me too. And then I think about how we didn't lose either. How we found a way through, because you wouldn't let me give up, because we wouldn't let each other give up. There's a difference." I kissed the top of her head. "I love you. I will never stop loving you, even when you're impossible, especially when you're impossible. I love you too, even when you need your privilege checked, especially when you're willing to learn." We sat there in the quiet of our home, listening to Zuri moving around upstairs, and I felt something settle in my chest. Peace. Hard-won and precious. The peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing even when it was the hard thing, even when it nearly cost you everything. The promise I made to Camilla on our wedding day was to love her, to honor her, to see her. And I'd kept that promise. But the crisis with Zuri had tested it in ways I'd never imagined, had forced me to understand that truly seeing her meant seeing the world through her eyes, that honoring her meant honoring her values, that loving her meant growing into someone worthy of her love. The billionaire never stopped loving his black woman, but he had to learn what love required, had to learn that love without justice is just sentimentality, that privilege without responsibility is just greed, that family without community is just isolation. He had to learn, and he did. We all did. And now, 2 years after Zuri's last treatment, our family looks different. We've sold the Manhattan penthouse. We live full-time in Brooklyn now, in the neighborhood where we first fell in love, where Camilla's work is centered, where we can be part of a community instead of above it. I still run Vandenberg Technologies. but 70% of our profits now go to the foundation, to housing equity initiatives, to education programs, to healthcare access. We've endowed chairs at medical schools for researchers focused on pediatric oncology. We've funded free clinics in underserved neighborhoods. We've invested in community land trusts that keep housing affordable in perpetuity. Camila runs the foundation now, full-time. She's brilliant at it, fierce and strategic and absolutely uncompromising about the mission. She builds coalitions across race and class lines. She holds power accountable. She amplifies marginalized voices. She changes systems. And Zuri, our beautiful, impossible daughter, she's 10 now, still cancer-free. She volunteers at the foundation, talks to other families going through treatment, raises money for patient assistance programs. She's determined to be a doctor, or maybe a policymaker, or maybe both. She hasn't decided. But whatever she becomes, she'll be someone who fights for justice. Someone who understands that her life was saved not just by money, but by a choice to use that money for everyone. Last week, we got a letter from the mother whose daughter I'd met at the celebration 2 years ago. The 6-year-old who'd been approved for the assistance program. She's 8 now, cancer-free, thriving. The letter said simply, "Thank you for teaching your daughter that her life is precious. And thank you for teaching her that everyone else's life is precious too. She's growing up in a better world because of the choice you made. We all are." I showed the letter to Camila. "This is why it mattered," she said. "I know," I replied. "I finally know. If you've stayed with this story, if you've felt something in your chest tighten as you've listened to our journey, I want you to do something for me. I want you to think about the choices you're making with your own privilege. Whether that's money or education or access or citizenship or any of the 100 ways some of us have advantages others don't. Are you using that privilege just to protect your own? Or are you using it to expand the circle of who gets protected? Are you writing the check and walking away? Or are you staying in the fight to change the systems that make the check necessary? These aren't easy questions. I know, because I've had to answer them. And the answers cost me, cost us, nearly cost us everything. But they also gave us everything. A marriage that's deeper and truer, a daughter who understands justice, a life that means something beyond accumulation and comfort. So, hit that subscribe button if this story moved you. Drop a like if you've ever had to choose between comfort and conscience. Comment below and tell me what you're doing with your privilege, with your resources, with your power. Tell me how you're expanding the circle. Tell me how you're fighting for everyone, not just your own. Because that's what love requires. Not grand gestures, not one-time heroics, but daily choices to see people who are invisible to power, to fight systems that protect some at the expense of others, to use everything you have to build a world where everyone's child is somebody's favorite person. And if you're struggling, if you're in the middle of your own impossible choice, if you're fighting with someone you love about values and principles and what matters most, I want you to know this. The struggle is the point. The tension is where growth happens. The conflict is how we become people capable of building the world we want to live in. Don't run from it. Lean into it. Let it change you. Because on the other side of that impossible choice is a version of yourself you didn't know you could become. A love you didn't know you could sustain. A life you didn't know you could build. The billionaire never stopped loving his black woman. But their child's crisis put his promise to the test. And in passing that test, in choosing the harder path, in expanding his understanding of what love requires, he became someone worthy of the promises he'd made. We all did. And we're still becoming. Every day. That's the lesson. That's the value. That's what I hope you'll carry with you when this video ends and you return to your own life with your own choices and your own impossible tensions. Love is not enough, but love that demands justice. Love that sees everyone. Love that fights for the world our children deserve. That love can change everything. That love did change everything. For us. And it can for you too. Share this story. Comment your thoughts. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that challenge and inspire. And most importantly, go out into your world and expand the circle. Because everybody matters. Not just the people who look like you or love like you or have what you have. Everybody. That's the promise. That's the test. That's the choice we all have to make. What will yours be?